Welcome to Getting Ghosted. This is an Intuitive Soul Collective podcast, and I'm your host, Allie Horner. Hello, everyone. So, kind of building on last week's episode, we're talking about mediumship and the things that can happen that don't give us the evidence that we want, right? Like that disappointment. And that's what last week's episode was all about. So, if you're kind of catching up, go back and go ahead and listen to that one. And what I thought I would do for this week is I would bring in my guides and my spirit team who love to teach on this stuff to talk about their perspectives on this and, what do they think? And sometimes they start talking about things or go off in a direction that I don't know that they're going to go in. So without further ado, here we go. Okay, so I've got my spirit guide, Sam, here. He loves to come in with his little cowboy boots, and he goes boots with the spurs, his little cowboy hat. And he always jokes because he worked on a ranch. He was on a ranch when he was alive. And if you guys don't remember, Sam started spontaneously coming through to me several years back. And he's been so much fun and such a great teacher. He and I actually channeled a whole series of videos on the reincarnational process and cycle and what he understands from a spiritual perspective now. And it was really fun. It went on, I think that was like 2 summers ago, about a year and a half ago. But you can find that on my TikTok. It'll be in the playlist. And that's Spirit Speaker 25, no periods, no dashes. I only have that one account. So make sure you're following the right one. It's got like 60 something thousand followers on it. So that said, Sam, if you don't remember, when he passed, because he had worked on a ranch and spent so much time taking care of animals, he was greeted by all of these animals. Like there was a rush of animals who came to get him, who were so excited for him to greet him when he was crossing over. So it was just like the most beautiful image. I'll never forget it. It was like cows and horses and chickens and piggies and birds and dogs and cats and hens. Like it was just crazy how many animals came through, and he was such an animal lover. And so that he is that same Sam. And so Sam is coming through and he's got his little button down on and he's like, I'm dressed for the show. I'm ready to go. And he's dusting off. Eric's helping him dust off his shoulders. Like he's cleaning him up. He's like, okay, here we go. And he's taking his hat and like knocking the bottoms of his jeans and his boots to knock the dust off. So he's getting started and they're all like, go for it, man. You got this. If you guys don't know also, Eric tends to be he's like one of my gatekeepers. He's not like a guardian angel, but he helps me with gatekeeping and making sure that I'm not pulling in too much energy. So he kind of helps me with that. So he tends to kind of hang. So that's why he comes in so much for me. He was also one of my big teachers when I went through the early stages of my journey. So yes. Okay. So we got Sam here. Eric's sitting in the back, just kind of holding the space for him. And Sam is saying, he's like, how do you do? How do you do, everybody? And he's saying, so now what I want to say about mediumship is he said, it's really that process of like connecting to the source. And it's just coming through this individual consciousness that this person had when they were on earth. But we really have so many different consciousnesses. And he said, that's what I really talked about during the reincarnation series is like all these consciousnesses are all part of the same source. It's like an octopus with all the arms going out or a tree with all of the root system going down, right? And he said, everything's interconnected and interwoven. We're all part of that same one source, that big trunk of the tree. But at the end of the day, we feel like when we're alive that we're just this one little teensy like piece of the root system, right? We're this one little part that branches off way over here. We don't see that there are gajillions more. We feel like we're having a singular experience, but there's the larger part of us that knows we're not having that singular experience. And he's like, and you can never be disconnected from this larger source. So even when you die, you kind of just pull your energy a little bit less out of that focus into the individual form, and you pull it more and more back up the root towards the trunk of the tree. And that's when you start to go, yeah, so you know yourself as that individual. You know you had that individual lifetime. You also recognize you're connected to every other lifetime there's ever been lived on earth. So in the essence of things, we're all connected in the end. We're all part of the same source, right? And so he's saying he said, so now when it comes to mediumship, what you got to understand is when it comes to mediumship and making sure you're getting it right and you're connecting to the right person at the right time and blah, blah, blah. He's like, you guys get real up in your heads and you overthink this shit and it makes it muddy. It's not us making it muddy. He goes, humans make it muddy, right? Because they get up in their heads and they get all screwy. And he's like showing someone operating on someone's head, like, but opening it like it's a machine. And there's all of these like, it's like the inside of a clock with all of these like coils and pieces that are turning and fitting together. And it's like, or like the engine of a car, and they're in their spirits and they're tweaking things and trying to like help us like work out the kinks and make sure there's still oil in there and gasoline and whatever we need. And he's like, see, so it's kind of like that. Like you kind of got to fine tune things over time. And some of how you do that is just through practice. And he said, practice makes perfect. And he winks. And the energy of it is really like what matters most. It's not always about who's saying what, if the right evidence is there all the time. Sometimes it's just like, hey, this message had to come through. Who the fuck cares who it came from? Who the fuck cares who's speaking? And he said, for some of you, you'll understand this more because sometimes you just get the right message at the right time and you never find out who said it. And he said, this has definitely happened to a lot of mediums and a lot of psychics where they're like, I don't know who's talking to me. I just know that the guidance I'm getting is loving and kind and it's supportive, or it's always been true. It's never steered me wrong. Or in some cases, it's actually saved people's lives. And that's one of the really like most powerful, potent, most beautiful things that we could ever share is like, sometimes spirit saves people's lives. And he said it, and it's also like an angel intervention. Angels come in and, you know, they can say, pay attention, or they'll jerk the wheel of the car, or they'll say, hey, don't climb that today. Or they'll whisper in your ear, hey, like, you know, we know you really want to go, you know, on this hike, but the weather's shifting. Like, I saw this video of these gals who were hiking in, I think it was Moab or somewhere in Arizona, and they got stuck in a flash flood. And I was like, okay, well, that weather had to have been on the radar. So I don't, you know, that's not safe, like not looking at weather conditions before we go hiking. And I mean, freak things can happen, but generally the day of, you should be able to see the weather that's predicted. So he's like, yeah, exactly. So when we're not paying attention, let's say we don't have a phone, we don't have a weather app, we don't have the internet to double check things or, you know, see what's true and what's not true. We can use our intuition, and our intuition is like that spidey sense, that GPS. And he's showing me spirit working through the intuition. And he said, it fits like this. And he shows me a glove and he goes, here's your intuition, right? You have this in you all the time. You have this, and it's kind of just there. And it's like your internal guidance system. It's like an internal compass. It's your inner knowing. It never steers you wrong. But a lot of you guys don't listen to it, right? So it can feel like it's like this empty glove sitting in there. Like there's not as much life in it, but it's there anyways. It's always trying. And he said, now what spirit does, your guides do, it's kind of like we fit our energy, and he's showing a hand going into the glove. He's like, we can put our hands in the glove and then we go, okay, let's give this a little more energy so that they can really hear their intuition. Right. And so we never are steering you wrong. And so sometimes he's saying, sometimes people, they go, well, is it my intuition or was it my guides telling me through my intuition? And it's like, it doesn't matter. Your guides know what your intuition is trying to tell you, and they're just helping enhance it. Your guides will never steer you wrong because your guides will never do anything that is not love or above. They're never going to do anything that will guide you away from truth and for the highest and best for yourself and all. And so they will never go against what your intuition is saying because they work on the same frequency of it. They're not separate from it. Right. So your highest consciousness is not separate from intuition. When we are acting in our truest, highest, most aware self, we are operating in the same consciousness that our guides are. It's just that we are drilled down and focused into the physical form. And that's what he's showing me. He's like, so you don't have to worry about like who's speaking all the time. You just have to know like, hey, if it's guiding me towards truth and it's helping me and it's loving, that's all I need to know. I don't always need to know so much more. Now, for the sake of evidential mediumship readings, and again, we talked about this last week, so you're going to need to go back and listen to that episode if you aren't sure what we're talking about. Go back and listen to that. He said, now building on that, sometimes people are like, well, I need to have this evidence. And he's like, but what do you need in terms of evidence? Like when you know in your heart, like this person is eternal, they're not gone, they love me still, and they're never leaving my side. Even if they're not stuck, they just like, we are all part of one another. So we can't leave what we are. Like, and it reminds me of this one time I channeled Source, and I was sitting there and I was like, I just want to connect to like pure Source. Like, what would that feel like? What would that be like? And I started weeping. Like, I was like weeping, because it came through me and it said, I love you and I'm with you eternally because I am you. And of course I love what I am. I would never leave you as I would never leave myself. How could I leave what I am? And it was like the most pure, loving, I don't know how to describe it any other way. Like, I wouldn't leave you even if I could. How could I leave what I am? And it went on to talk about like, how could I deny you when you and I are one? It would just be me. Like, how could I deny love to myself? And it just kind of reminded me of that sort of like spiritual concept that we are all love in a million forms, experiencing itself in a million forms. And I just went, God, it's like just the most beautiful way of looking at it. And he's like, and it's pretty close to like how the best way humans could articulate this on earth is like, you're really all part of this one tree of life, right? This one tree of eternal life. And when you're in the root system and you're in your physical lifetimes, you just think that you're out there kind of floating alone, and you forget that you actually are connected to this larger energy in essence. This energy is everything. It's in everyone, everything all the time. Anything you see and seen and unseen has consciousness. And like I've heard some mediums or psychics say like rocks don't have consciousness. I was like, girl, you never been in the mountains, have you? Those mountains have consciousness. Like, they glow, they have auric fields, they have vibration. You can hear them, you can talk to them. I am telling you, they absolutely have consciousness. And it's just about like fine tuning to hear, to see, to smell, to know the consciousness, to feel it there. And so in essence, he's saying, so now when it comes to, again, he goes, we digress. When we go back to that mediumship side of things, he's saying, so when you're looking for evidence, he goes, we understand on spirit side. So we try really hard to get you that evidence. Cause I was like, so the frustrating thing is, and I was telling him, I was like, you guys know, I tried to give them all these stories. Here's examples where evidence came in weird ways, or the evidence they wanted isn't the evidence they got, but the evidence they got absolutely did validate that their loved one was there talking to them. And he's saying, he goes, yeah. So he goes, I got an explanation on this from Spirit's perspective. So he's like, from Spirit's perspective, we give as much evidence as we can give. We also know when you guys have time periods where you have to learn, where we need that loved one to step outside of that pushing, that knowing. We're trying to help them with their grief cycle. We're trying to help them not to recreate certain traumas. So for example, some people come to Allie and they say, okay, I need to know that this is my loved one. Here are the pieces of evidence I've decided I need. And we kind of talked about this last week, but he's like, so they'll come in and they'll be like, I need to know, you need to pick up how they died. Well, and he's like, well, sometimes rehashing the way someone died is traumatizing. It's traumatizing for the person who's receiving the reading about their loved one. It's traumatizing for the psychic. It's not fair to always ask a psychic to rehash and talk about people's traumatic deaths all the time. Mediums aren't always here to just be like, yeah, here's all the little pieces of evidence. They're often here to give messages of love and guidance. That is the whole point of mediumship, is to help you remember that your relationships with your loved ones span the tests of time and experience. They span any form and formlessness that we exist in. And so we go on beyond death. It's not about just getting evidence that we exist. It's about the messages and guidance and love and relationship we can continue to have long beyond death, because we all know each other from before we died. We all know each other from before we even lived. So that is the whole point of mediumship. The whole point of mediumship is not to constantly give you some sort of like experiential checks and balances. Now we understand that you guys need that. He's saying, he's like, we get that people need that. And they come in and they're like, I need to hear this thing. And it's like, sometimes the other side's like, hey, we've already given you that thing 18 different times. Like, we've been talking to you. So what you need most is to go through the experiential process on your own, not to rely on mediums to do it for you, but for you to trust that you're already receiving signs. Because usually people are just trying to validate if their loved one's really talking to them themselves, right? Like not just the medium in a mediumship session, but they're like, I think I'm hearing my sister, but I don't know, I'm not sure. And I'm going to go get a medium reading, right? To validate it. And so sometimes what we'll do as spirit is we'll redirect the person back to themselves. That you didn't say the magic word. We'll try to redirect them back because we're like, no, they're not imagining it. And that's all they need to know. And they need to keep working with us personally so that they can build their trust and build their connection. And the more they build their trust, the harder this whole believing part's going to be. Right. And he's like, so we're not trying to be hard on anyone. We just know when you guys need to kind of work that trust muscle. And when you're going to be tempted to farm out your own connection to the other side with your own loved ones to a psychic or a medium, we don't want you doing that. Like we know that in the beginning, you're going to do that to kind of get that door open and get some confirmation and get a little validation. And that's often when we'll bring through that evidence, or we'll bring through other pieces of fun evidence. The favorite song you didn't ask for, their favorite color, a memory of theirs, a photo of theirs that you have that we're showing you, the medium from the other side, a charm or a locket or a bracelet you gave them and where it's hanging in their room, right? And he's like, or where something is in a drawer. He's like, he goes, one time, someone asked Allie, hey, we lost my mother-in-law's wedding ring. We can't find it. Can she tell us where it is? And she showed them like, hey, I'm seeing a wooden drawer. It's not where they're looking. It might be out in like maybe a garage or something like that. Sure as shit. They went out and looked. It was in the drawer. In this wooden, like, I forget if it was like a chest of drawers or a wardrobe or something like that happened to be out. And it was just in a weird place. Like, I think they had moved her furniture in there or something, and it was in there. And he was like, yeah, so like that was a confirmation, right? That's a piece of evidence that person, like, people don't always think to ask for the evidence that spirit's trying to give them, or that spirit's like, hey, this will be more fun if we do this evidence. And because spirit isn't just like, here are things that the psychic could pick up that are about the spirit, right? Because sometimes people use their psychic ability too to pick up information, and it's not mediumship, it's just psychic ability getting in there like, oh yeah, I see this, this, and this. Well, they could be psychic and pick that up. They might not necessarily be hearing. When someone's doing mediumship, they're getting messages from the other side. That personality might come through, or the love of that spirit might come through, or sometimes an apology might come through, an acknowledgement of their behavior here on earth, not because the spirit's like in this all this resent and regret. They're in a pure state of consciousness, and they go, oh well, shit, I did these things and I really was not my best self here on earth, and I hurt my kid, and I hurt this person, and I want to acknowledge that so that they can start to move forward, officially having an apology and some closure from me on this subject, and know that I'm cheering them on in my highest self, that I understand if they don't want to talk to me. I want to tell them I acknowledge what I did. I know it sucked. I know it was awful, and I'm so sorry. Like my spiritual experiences, I know it. And he said, so sometimes they don't give you all this other evidence like birth dates and names and places. They come in and acknowledge something huge like that. Right? And he's like, so you got to kind of expand your ideas of like how mediumship can work and the evidence, because it's not about just the evidence in the way you think it is. Sometimes the message is really, really important. And he's saying, now the other piece is sometimes you guys, you want one thing, but you really need another, and spirit knows that. And so we'll try to do our best to kind of give you a domino effect thing, to kind of like knock both those things out and try to do that. Sometimes though, we know that what you think you want isn't in your best interest. And so we give you what you need instead. And that might be a little frustrating, but 9 times out of 10, well, he's like more like 9.7 times out of 10, people realize afterward, like, you know what, actually that was the best for me. They're right. I did actually need to hear that more. I did need to have that experience more. And so he's saying, so you kind of got to trust, a little bit when the psychic or medium is saying, here's what I'm getting and here's what I'm hearing. And I know it's not the exact things that you were asking to get evidence on or proof of or whatever. Like that, but this is what they're saying. And it's either going to make sense now or make sense later or make sense to someone else. Right. And he said, and that's kind of the beauty of this stuff. He said, now the other thing is we can also do really cool things like we connect people to each other. So sometimes there are other things you're meant to get out of a reading besides what you think you're supposed to get out of a reading. So he's like, so sometimes spirit, you'll come in and you'll be like, well, here's what the evidence I need, right? And sometimes spirit is like, well, hey, here's some of the other gifts we want to give you that you're not even thinking to ask for, because you're so fixated on this one thing, you're stuck in a loop, right? And that grief loop is kind of keeping your world a little too small. We want to expand your world, especially if you're in grief. We want to remind you like, hey, like we're still here. We understand that grief is crowding you, right? That grief is a lot. It's so big, it's so heavy. And so we want to give you more. We want to connect you with people in your area. We want to encourage you. We want to invite you. We want to inspire you into new things. We want to remind you we're not gone. We want to remind you, hey, there are grief support groups. We want to remind you, hey, you can call on other people. We might help you bump into people or find people. We might be giving you advice or guidance. And that's usually what we really want to get to, is that part of things. We understand you want the other stuff, but sometimes your fixation on the other stuff, all the little evidence, keeps you a little small and narrow-minded, right? And he's saying it keeps you guys a little too hyper-focused. And sometimes when you guys are in that, which we understand, he's like saying, first of all, we understand, we have compassion, but a lot of times when you guys are in that fixation, it's out of fear. And he said in fear and grief, they do tricky things to the brain. So he's saying like, he's putting his hand over his heart and he said, we get it. So that's like their symbol of compassion for me is a fist or an open hand over their chest. And they say like, we get it. Like we have compassion for that. We also will start to nudge you past it and out of the comfort zone a little bit when it's time, because we want you to really have, to kind of bridge that gap and start to realize like, hey, I can have my own relationship with my loved ones. Of course, I can hire mediums and psychics, but I can connect to my loved ones myself. And he goes, now that is when we start to guide you toward mediums and psychics who like to teach, like Allie. Not all of them like to teach, or they don't feel like they can teach quite yet. Like they don't know if they're there yet. Some people struggle to articulate things and break them down. But then there are some people who love this shit and who can channel to such a degree that if they're like, well, if I don't know an answer, I'll just channel it from my guides, right? So if I don't know how to teach a certain thing, my guides will teach. And he goes, that's how Allie works a lot. Like she's like, well, I know a lot of things now, but my guides have taught me them all, and I know that they can teach others. So often for some of you guys, you're getting a medium reading and you get the experience, and sometimes you get like all the evidence you want. Sometimes they give you different evidence, but it's still evidence, right? And you're like, okay, that's not the exact one I asked for, but that's still a piece of evidence. Like, yeah, that's definitely my grandma. That's the shoes she liked, or that's the lipstick she wore, or the perfume or whatever. I didn't even think to ask for that one, right? And he's like, so we like to mix it up and have fun with you guys, work with different senses. And sometimes we're doing that to help open your senses as the person receiving the reading. We want your mind opening. We want you realizing how much more shit you've been picking up that you didn't even know you were picking up because you didn't know you were a medium yet, right? So we're trying to help by using that session where we're trying to help jog your memories and help you make some little connections. He's like, remember we get in there and we tweak things, right? And we're trying to help you maybe discover your own skills and discover your own signs that you've been getting, or look for new signs that we're going to be giving you. We're trying to say, hey, like this stuff all works in really fun, expansive ways if you let it. If you kind of get out of your head and go, okay, let's, what else you got? What else could they bring through? And he's like, so then in addition to that, we often like to use sessions with these sort of like teacher mediums where you come in for a session for a reading and you end up getting really good guidance on how to open your own mediumship, because that is probably one of the most powerful things you can get, is not just the confirmation, but here's how you can move forward. Here's how you can keep this connection for yourself. This is a huge bridge that you can gap. Now you can begin to walk across that bridge yourself. You don't always have to, hire out someone. You don't always have to look for someone else to have that connection or those answers. You have it yourself. You've got it. Like you can do it at the drop of a hat. All it takes usually is some willingness, and the ability to learn and be open-minded is key, because most of y'all are already connecting to people on the other side. You just don't know it yet. And so he's saying, like, a lot of you are getting signs, nudges, spirit smells, all sorts of things, images in your head, especially. You think it's imagination. That's super common. It's not your imagination. It's us. And so he's saying, so we wanted to kind of toss that out there, because a lot of times you come in for sessions and you're like, oh, I just want a reading with my kid or someone, but it actually serves as kind of a training session, and it helps open that door for you. And it's like an invitation from the other side saying, hey, it's time to Like, we're here, we're waiting. You come when you're ready. We're ready to work with you. We're ready to connect with you. Your loved ones are waiting right here. We have endless patience. For us, time is no object. And so we're ready. We're ready when you are. And so, yeah, and he's saying, what else you got, teacher? Now he's kind of pointing to his watch, and he's like, well, time is of the essence here. He said, but I thought I'd jump in and just kind of like interject a little bit. He goes, I kind of was like, I want to have Allie's back a little bit on this, and kind of explain where we're all coming from. And he said, another lesson that I think is really important to remember in this work is that not everything always goes according to plan. And that's really important for no matter what type of reading or mediumship you're getting or you're doing. Sometimes it's a good time and place to leave things open. Sometimes you ask for things that you don't get. Sometimes you get what you need. I'm hearing that song, you can't always get what you want. You get what you need. And he's playing that, and he's like dancing and like slowly like waving his butt back and forth. It reminds me of like very 90s, like Macaulay Culkin dancing. And he's saying, yeah, and it's kind of like, it's a little more fun that way. Spirit wants to spice things up. We want to surprise and delight you. We want to make it fun. So this is a really great time to do that, because we're in this era in which human consciousness is expanding and starting to understand like, hey, maybe this isn't all there is. Maybe there's more here than meets the eye. So we're trying to help y'all with that in a really good and powerful way. And he's like, so I hope you'll kind of, take this and kind of take this in. And he said, again, it's not that we don't want to get you evidence. It's just sometimes that's not always the focus of the reading. Sometimes the evidence that person's asking for, sometimes it's not always fair or appropriate to ask for it. And sometimes that person just doesn't know, hey, mediums work differently. Guides work differently with different mediums. Some mediums are like, meant to be teacher mediums. Some are like, some don't get names. Like I don't really get names all the time. It's kind of like I don't always get them on command. My guides always say it's to keep me humble. So that's fun. I'm like, gee, thanks, Govna. But some of them are like, more so, like, again, like I always have to tell people like, hey, I actually don't like to read on deaths. I am clairsentient when it comes to that, and I'll pick up the sensation in my body, and it's really uncomfortable. So if they were electrocuted, if they were, had a heart attack, I get the feeling in my chest. It's unpleasant. And Sam said, yeah, so like, it's again, like people will be like, oh, well, if you're really talking to this person, how did they die? And he's like, well, why would you not accept these other 18 pieces of evidence we've already given you because you're so fixated on her having to know this one thing when she says, hey, like, I have a boundary around this. Like mediums are allowed to have boundaries. They're allowed to say, hey, that's not work I do. Or that's not something I'm comfortable with. Or, hey, as someone who has a lot of clairsentience when it comes to death or other people's physical ailments and stuff, I don't like that. I don't want to do that. If someone passed from something lung related, often like lung cancer due to smoking or fire, I feel that in my lungs. It's uncomfy, and my throat will actually go dry and scratchy, and I'll struggle to speak in the reading for a minute. And it's not, he's like, yeah, it's not really fair. It's not really fair to the psychic, right? It's not really fair to the medium. That's not like, maybe we can get you some other validation, the way we talk, the way we show up, the way we look in the reading, maybe a smell. There's other really cool ways we can do this. So for those of you who are mediums and psychics, or who are the people getting readings, just kind of, he said, keep your heart open, keep your head a little bit more open. And he said, and also a hint, if you're coming in and you're like, I need these specific things, you're probably missing a bunch of other communications from us because you're so fixated on those things. I need this, I need this, I need this. He's like, it's almost like spiritual OCD. It's like a hyperfixation. Instead, just go, okay, I'm going to be open. I'm going to be curious. What else might be coming through? How else might my guides and teachers and loved ones be trying to reach me or trying to show me their presence? And how might they be trying to help me, support me, and guide me and keep a relationship with me? Because remember, it's not about the evidence itself. That's just like one little piece of a reading. That's just the beginning. It's all about the messages, the healing, and the guidance, and in many cases, that relationship healing or continuing from beyond. He's like, from beyond the grave. And he said, and that's really the goal of this, is that you guys on earth start to overcome your fear of death so that you can fully start living life. Because most of you all are actually terrified of living life fully. And when you overcome that fear of death by remembering we don't really die, that's when you can live your lives. So I hope that this was helpful today. He's kind of leaning back. He's got his hands clasped behind his head, and he's got like his, like he's like leaning back like, yeah, yes. And he's like, okay, I'm going to go take my vacation. And he put up his little, back in the day, ladies used to go sun themselves, and they would put up that reflecting thing to get sun reflecting onto their face more. And they would put on those little like eye cover things. And they're not like full sunnies. They're like these little teeny eye cover things. He's showing me that, and he's just sitting there like holding it like, And then I heard, if you like pina coladas and getting caught in the rain. That is one of my clairaudience songs that comes through from the other side all the time. Just kind of displaying like, yeah, they're kicking back, they're resting, they're relaxing now, they're taking a little bit of a breather now. So so I guess he is ready to sign off. So yeah, if you have questions about this, feel free to use the link in the show notes to submit questions for the podcast. There's also a little area where you can record your question, which would be great for future episodes of the podcast as well. But yeah, if you have any more questions, I would love to answer them in one of my listener questions and stories episodes. We're long overdue for one of those. So if you have some, feel free to submit them. Or if you have other topics you want Sam and the guides to chime in on, not as much like predictive stuff, guys, more so like with the way things work, their perspectives on different things, etc. Like things going on in the world is fine. Different cool topics, spiritual things, whatever, afterlife things. Feel free to leave those at that link in the bio or in the show notes, and I will come back and answer soon. Alrighty, everyone. Thank you so much, and have an awesome, awesome week.